So, hi everyone. This is Lisa DeYoung, the Mountain Mermaid, and I'm here with Jennifer Lee of Artizen Coaching, and uh,
Hi.
and she is. We are here to have a little conversation about the Daily Musings Journal, which I began publishing in 2014. So she's going to ask me a few questions about how it all got started, and then we're going to talk about a little bit about both of our daily creative practices using the Daily Musings Journal.
Yeah, and actually I'm going to show mine here and we'll show inside in a little bit, but I know Lisa, I can't remember when I met you as at a video summit several years ago. But I remember when you started doing these doodles and seeing all your fun sketches and all the fun color that you did. And it was cool to see this process evolve. So I'd love if maybe you can share with folks how um, this doodling practice came about and how the journal came to be from that.
All right. Well, thanks, Jen. And yeah, thanks so much for being here. And this is funny. So I started this as a personal practice with planners that I would buy in a store. And I would just write down kind of my little adventure. So it really just started as a writing practice. And in 2010, I actually started making my own just out of a blank journal. And I made my own little borders and I was like, you can see I used some colored pencils for the squares, but
Uh-huh.
I was really just writing in pencil what I did every day.
And did you just have a blank, that was blank and you just hand drew each of those squares?
Yep, it
Wow.
was a blank journal. And
Okay.
I actually created a little template, like a little cardboard template that I
Oh,
would change
smart.
around.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually the second year, I think I was, I was making stamps. I made a
Oh,
square
yeah.
stamp and I was stamping it. But I have a background in graphic design, and by 2013, I was kind of getting tired of creating these journals. Like I loved it, but it was like month by month. I was like, okay, I got to create the next month. Oh my God, I got to create the next week because I didn't get to it yet. And so I decided that I would try and make one for myself. And it was around when digital printing was really getting kind of a more accessible
Mm-hmm.
mode of printing something. And I thought originally I was just going to print one for myself. And then the Daily Musings Journal was born because I thought, well, if I like this, maybe other people will like it. So 2014, which that
Okay.
was the first video summit, I think, wasn't it?
2011 was the first video summit, but I think um, he must have shared that because I remember we like did some coaching around it in one of the programs. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So I know, cause I came to you're right. 2011, I came to the original video
I
summit. I
know,
came
I know.
every year, but yeah, so 2014 or 2015, but so I started publishing it and I actually had to think of a name because I didn't even have a name for it. And I just, it was something that I did kind of every day. And it was actually in 2014, I was still doing a little bit more doodling, but still kind of a lot of black and white. And in 2015, the end of 2014, I really started breaking out of my mold and trying to open a decent page and just doing all kinds of
Wow,
crazy things.
fun.
Yeah, so a little bit of collage, a little bit of doodling, a little bit of
Hmm.
sketching, markers, colored pencils, now even some watercolor. So yeah, it's been a fun journey. Um,
It's so cool to see it evolve. And how has that helped your creative practice?
um, it's interesting because I still don't necessarily, well, I used to write in it like at night when I was in bed, and
Mm.
I found that wasn't so good for me. So it's been good because even if I don't do it on that particular day, I still always want to get back to my days and just remember. It really helps me kind of think about what I want to remember. And then I like having the square with the date on it
Mm-hmm.
that allows me to go back to that date and put something in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's really helped me. The other thing that it's really helped me with is it's given me this little space. I've always been afraid of drawing, and in the past few years, it's really given me a little more permission to just sketch and not worry about what the results are. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
always surprised at how much I really like the results. So
Mm.
it's been great.
Yeah.
And so this year you got a Daily Musings Journal, and I know you've been using it for like your meditation practice. So I'd love to hear a little bit about what you're doing with the Daily Musings Journal.
Yes, a lot of what you said I relate to. So yeah, I got this, and I had done a meditation teacher training in the fall of 2016, and with that was developing my daily practice. I was uh, meditating, but not, regularly daily before taking the training. And during the training, we had to journal each of our practices, and so I was writing about, each time I would sit down and write things. And then when I got this format and the new year started, I was like, it might just be fun to doodle instead of having to like write out something each time. So I've been using this as my daily meditation journal. So then I started doodling here. And this one's one of my favorites. I was antsy that day. So sometimes it's just like a concept that I capture of like how my sit was for the day. And it's been a fun way for me to incorporate creativity on a daily basis and have it be super low pressure. Um, a lot of times they're just things I probably don't even want to show you because my drawings are so yucky, but it's like I made time to do it, and I'm not so worried about the result. Well, I'll show you anyway, even though I hate this one. I had one of my practices where I felt like my mind was a roller coaster. And so I was trying to draw that, but
Oh, I like that. That's great.
it didn't execute the way that I totally wanted it to, but it completely captures like what I was feeling. And so I love that this format being a journal and with it being so small that, I just do a quick sketch. But sometimes like things come up where I might want to expand on the concept later, like the sketch that I did may not be exactly, how I like it, but I'm trying to find an example. But the concept, like I might want to expand on. Oh, like this one here. I did this meditation. It says catch and release, getting hooked by a thought and then letting go of the thought.
I
Uh,
love that. I remember when you shared that on social
yeah.
media. Yes.
And, you know, if I were to, I would want to draw this better, like if I were to use it in some kind of product or something, but at least this process helps me to capture the concept, while it's fresh in my mind. So it's been really fun to do that.
Nice.
And then I loved what you were saying about how, you're not always able to do the doodle on the same day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that happened to me a couple of times, and I went back and did that. But when I was in LA for several weeks when my dad was in hospice, and he passed away in May. And so that whole time, I was so proud of myself. I kept meditating, even though it was like this really stressful situation. Of course, I needed to meditate. And then afterwards, I had tried to doodle while I was doing it, and then it just got to be too much. But I had a log of all the meditation that I did. And when I came back, and as part of my own grieving process and healing process, I was like, I want to go back and fill in those squares. And so I love that you had given us permission to not always have them be in the box, right? That they can kind of go around. So part of my days just really blended together, and I didn't know like what time it was. And so this is kind of my intuitive
I
doodling
love that.
version of
Yes.
just like what is going on and all this emotion and not knowing what day it is. Um, and then again, things kind of went onto the next page. Um, but it felt really good, like once I was able to get this all down. And this again. That's like when he passed away, and just, everything just was bleeding into the next thing. And so it was cool to play with that just on a, creative level, and have the structure be flexible enough for me to do that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, I definitely, that happens to me, that happens to me a lot. I think that's what happens. Our days kind of can melt together, and you
Right.
want to be creative every day, or you want to remember something. And then I'll be like,
Exactly.
I mean, sometimes it's the next morning and I'm just like, okay, what was yesterday? And so, yeah, I've given myself permission. Here's a place where I've, just gone across the squares, and
Mm-hmm.
I journaled kind of on top of each other, because I think I probably didn't remember. I wrote down some of the things that I remembered, but then I wrote down probably about my kind of frustration of things just kind of blending together, and
Right.
what did I do? And yeah, I have a new thing that I've been doing. And I just did this the other day. I made myself, whoops, I made myself a check mark because the day, and I wrote down the things that I did, but a few of the things that I did that I remembered, but I just made this big check mark because I'm like, okay, yeah, that day went by.
Uh-huh. I know I've had some that are just a question mark because I don't remember what happened.
But I think that's fun. At least you go back and you put something on there, and then
Right.
you also, I think it allows you to still see a little bit of a trend, or
Absolutely.
when you had that period that I mean, you're going to remember always. You went back and did that, and then there was a lot of turmoil going on, and you can see
Right.
that in the doodles, but it goes across
Exactly.
the days. So yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, good. I'm
Uh,
glad you used that concept.
I did. It was really helpful because I'm like, I didn't like having it, be like all these pages of blank squares, so it felt good to do that. I wanted to show one other thing. On one of my meditation practices, there was a fly that was buzzing around. And so it was kind of like my thoughts buzzing around in my head.
Oh
And
my
then the next day, it was dead in the corner. I was like, oh, that's perfect. Lesson on impermanence.
Right.
So it's funny too how the squares and the juxtaposition that can happen just from, daily life and what the lessons are in that. That helped me capture that, teaching for myself around impermanence.
Nice. Oh, that's great. Oh, I love seeing that. I know you would, I mean, you've told me that you were doing that, and I know you've shared a few of those, but I love those, the sort of the concepts that for maybe for your work, like if there's a concept you want to go back to, you've captured it, even
Right,
if it's like a year later and you're kind of cruising through the journal, like, oh, look at that. Like,
right.
because it may be something that keeps popping up, but you're not sure why. And then you might see this little doodle that you did that really
Right.
catches your attention. So I think
Yeah.
that's really great. And
You'll
yeah,
probably
and I
see it
think,
in a newsletter article at some point with a revised drawing to go with.
right. And I think it's, yeah, I think it's important to be able to hear that you've given yourself permission, because I do, and I want other folks that want to try and doodle and have a creative practice to give yourself permission that if it doesn't happen every day, it's still okay, and you can either come back to that day or just create some kind of doodle that goes through those days that are
Mhm.
sort of missing in action. Or like for me, some days I think the check mark is on a day like where I made an X one day, and I journaled, like just handwriting within the
Mm,
X, and
right.
made doodles on the outside part. And I just did that because I was some days when I'm just kind of feeling flat, and they're like, I wasn't excited. I just feel like I so appreciate every day and every moment. But some days you just kind of feel, there's nothing really that gets you excited. I don't know. So
Right.
that's what I do sometimes when I don't have anything that's going, oh my gosh, yeah, I want to be in this square.
Right. And not every day is going to be, super exciting and super memorable. And that's okay because that's part of life,
Right.
So, yeah.
Exactly. So
Um, One of the other things that I really love with this format is all I do is just use a pen. That's it. I know you use a lot of different mediums, but for me, in order to keep it really simple, I'm like, I'm just gonna do like line drawings. Like that's it. I don't need to worry about coloring it in or adding any other medium, and that's made it really easy for me to keep up with it. And even just experimenting with different patterns, to make different, since I'm not using color, I've been playing a little bit more with patterns and things like that. So
Hmm.
it's
I
been
think that's
fun.
great. Yeah, I think just using, black only or sometimes pencil is
Hmm.
really great. And I mean, that's literally how I started. And
Hmm.
I think that's the other thing about this journal is that if you feel like there's something that you want to log daily, and for me, it was about like just keep chronicling sort of my adventures, outside. I'm a big outdoors person, but it sort of turned into this logbook that just is logging my days in sort of a creative way. But
Right.
I think you can do that with black only, or you can mix it up if you feel like some days are more like you have a little more time and you feel like pulling out your watercolors, or you feel like collaging. Sometimes I do like a found inspiration or a found thought that comes up when I'm looking at different words from
Hmm.
magazines or something like that. So there's many different ways to use it, and I think that I hadn't really thought about using it as sort of a meditation journal. So I
Hmm.
think that's exciting to be able to share with everyone that there's so many different options and ways to use a journal like this.
Yeah, it's been really great for me, and I can't wait to get one for the next year.
Yay! Well, funny that you should say that. That's what where I'm working on right now is 2018, and
Hmm.
yeah, so I'm going to be having a little doodling adventure in August where people can give the format a try, called the August Doodle Days Musings Adventure, and I guess I'll put a link with the video when I do like a little page at the end. So if people are interested, they can check out the details. But they'll be able to print out the month of August from a PDF and be able to
Right.
give the format a try.
Right, just for the month, and that'll be
Yes.
that'll be great for people to get a taste of what it's like to do this daily practice.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Jen. It's been really great talking with you and learning a little bit more about your practice and just being able to share another way that people can use the Daily Musings Journal. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, and thanks for this awesome journal and creative practice.
All righty. Thanks.